mind if I hedge on this side so I'm not right on the crack?
No, that's fine.
These
Let
are
me just.
interesting chairs.
I know. I feel like I'm in third grade. It's super low.
At least you're tall.
I know. I feel like I'm shrinking into
Their
this.
sashes.
Very low.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
It's a very interesting seat.
Do you feel like you have to sit on like the front end of it? I'm not gonna.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I know. That's definitely it's like skewing up a little bit.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the home of the Wolfpack. Tonight, you're welcome here at West Valley High School for tonight's public forum with our superintendent finalist. I'm Joya Sanderson, School Board President of the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District. These excellent finalists have been selected from an extensive national search that started when applicants were open on November the 9th. The process included an opportunity for the community to participate in an online survey concerning the qualities and the characteristics that they would like to see in the next superintendent. The process also included 8 virtual stakeholder meetings where participants provided additional input to the board concerning the leadership style of the new superintendent. The board reviewed all of the feedback as they refined the profile for the ideal superintendent candidate for this district. At tonight's forum, people can attend in person or participate virtually. Everyone attending or participating online can complete a feedback form via a SurveyMonkey. The board will review these surveys as part of their final deliberation. At the end of tonight's candidates forum, a QR code with the link to the SurveyMonkey for each of the candidates will be on the screen. For those of you streaming this forum, you can find the link to the SurveyMonkey on the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District website page titled Superintendent Search. Final interviews will be on February the 18th at the Administration Center from 9 to 12 p.m. And the public is welcome to attend in person or to view the interviews virtually. Each candidate will make a presentation of a 100-day entry plan. As the new superintendent of the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District, this will be followed by formal interview questions. There will not be an opportunity for public participation, but everyone in attendance will have the option to complete a SurveyMonkey. QR codes for that survey will also be available on the website. The results of the survey will be reviewed by the board during the deliberations. The board plans to deliberate after the interviews are concluded with a decision on the new superintendent immediately afterwards. We plan to approve the new superintendent's contract at our regular board meeting, March the 7th. I want to thank you in advance for participating, and I just want to highlight that the QR codes are open from last night's QR code and tonight's QR code will stay open until 12:30 tomorrow afternoon, and then the surveys will close. So this will give you opportunity to complete the survey and have your input, which is vitally important to the work that this board is doing. I want to thank you again tonight for being here, and I want to have Mr. Doran, our Vice President of the School Board, to come up, and he'll be our moderator.
Tonight's questions are solicited from a variety of stakeholders throughout our community, and we really appreciate their participation in putting forward something from their perspective to help us get an understanding of who our candidates are and how they might serve our district and community. These are different questions from the ones asked at the North Pole Public Forum last night. So if you have heard that one, you're not duplicating tonight, you're getting a new view. So we will start with a 2-minute opening statement, and we will ask the candidates to please introduce yourself and tell us who you are. And we will start with Dr. Scallon.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ryan Scallon. I'd like to start by just thanking the school board, the Fairbanks community, our student tours today. I mean, just the level of pride and excitement that the students here had, the students at North Pole, every student we've come across for their school and what they're experiencing has truly been infectious and exciting and clearly speaks to the wonderful community that you have built here. I start any introduction as I'm a father of 3. That is where I start. That is why I'm in this work, is to make sure that all students, my students, all students get a world-class, great education. My oldest is 12. He is in the middle of a soccer game probably. Our middle is 9. She is the artist of the family. And our 6-year-old is our wild child. I don't know where she comes from, but she is her own spirit animal. On the professional side, I like to think of myself as a collaborative, inclusive, results-oriented leader. What I mean by that is I recognize that the work of improving education can't be done by one single person, and that it's about leading teams to effectively improve outcomes for students. I'm proud of the fact that I've worked in a number of communities, and in each of those communities, I've been able to take the time to listen and learn and understand what is needed to move that school or that community forward. And in each setting, I've been able to see improvements in student outcomes, whether you measure that by school climate, by academic achievement, by test scores, sort of all inclusive. We've been able to see gains in that. I also want to recognize that I am not from Fairbanks, and I am from Philadelphia. And one of the things that I'm proud of is coming in here with an open mind and coming in here to figure out what the best solutions are for this community to move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Meinert?
Thank you. I'm Luke Meinert. I'm the current Assistant Superintendent for schools here in Fairbanks, Alaska. I've been with the district for 3 years and have lived in Fairbanks for 10 years. My wife and I call Fairbanks our home. We got married here. We've had kids here. My wife teaches at University Park. My kids attend University Park, and so we're definitely invested in the community. I've had the opportunity to work in 3 school districts within Alaska. I started my career down on the Aleutian chain. Fell in love with Alaska when I was in college at the University of Montana. One of my advisors had taught up in Russian Mission for 15 years, and he's like, you gotta check out Alaska. Had a couple job offers my senior year. I came up to Alaska Teacher Placement Job Fair. Had a job offer actually just down the road in Delta, and then had a job offer down in Sandpoint. And I wanted to get as far off the road system as I could because it was like nothing else I had ever experienced. And what an amazing experience it was. I taught social studies and government down there, commercial fish during the summers, had a lot of coaching opportunities that took me around the state, and then started my administrative career there. I love Fairbanks, I love this school district, and I love the people, and I'd be very honored to be the superintendent of the schools here.
Thank you. Mr. Hauser?
My name is Frank Hauser. I've been an educator in Alaska for 25 years. I graduated from the Alaska Public School System, the Mat-Su Valley, and the University of Alaska system. I actually did my student teaching, not my student teaching, but my teaching endorsement here at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I currently serve as a superintendent of the Sitka School District, a mid-sized district in southeast Alaska. Before that, I spent 23 years in the Anchorage School District. I was a principal at Service High School, which is the 3rd largest comprehensive high school in the state of Alaska. During that time, Service High School was recognized as one of 30 schools, recognized by ESPN and Special Olympics as one of 30 schools in the nation for inclusive practices. I was also recognized as the Principal of the Year during that time for the state of Alaska. Before that, I served in the district office in the Anchorage School District for 6 years and had been an assistant principal at the middle school, high school, and a K-12 open optional school. I actually started as an itinerant music teacher, and so I had the opportunity to work in nearly every neighborhood of a large, diverse urban district. And that really has been a benefit for me in how I approach education and look at education. Because I actually came to education in my chosen profession, not because school was easy for me, but it was actually a real challenging experience for me when I was growing up. And I've really taken that and devoted my career as an educator and an educational leader to encouraging students and making sure that each and every one of them has what they need and the supports and the opportunities for success. My wife and I actually lived in Fairbanks right after we got married, and I have a lot of real fond memories, and I just really want to thank everyone for the opportunity to be here today. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next 10 questions will be timed at 1 minute, 15 seconds each. And again, these come from different stakeholders within our community. I appreciate their offering their perspective, and I think also they were very mindful of questions that, though from their perspective, address different aspects around our community in different ways. So with that, we're going to start this round with Mr. Meinert. An ongoing issue over the years has been the achievement gap of Alaska Native students. Please tell us how you'd address this situation and provide specific actions that should be considered.
Yeah, I think this is a great question and an important one, and one that I'm very passionate about given my experience in rural Alaska Native villages. And one that is very complex, and one that I'll admit I don't have the answer to it. And so in my 100-day plan, you'll hear me talk about collaboration with FNA, TCC, DOYON. I would like to put a subcommittee together to really tackle this and look at it and hear from experts in the room as to how we could potentially improve the education of our Alaska Native students. I think those conversations are important, and they're ones that we need to have here in Fairbanks. I'd also like to introduce an Alaska Native language program. It's something that I help support when I work for the Yukon-Koyukuk School District, and it's not something that is currently here within the Fairbanks School District. I think language is obviously a very important part of Alaska Native identity and something that we should value and support here in the school district. Lastly, I want to ensure that we're following all aspects of the mediated agreement that we do have in place. So that's something that I'll be reviewing on a yearly basis as the superintendent.
Thank you. And if I could remind all the speakers, if you pull your mics maybe a little bit closer to your mouth so we make sure our listening audience on watching digitally gets everything you say. Okay, next we'll go to Mr. Hauser.
So as I said, I currently serve as the superintendent of the Sitka School District. The Sitka School District is a diverse district with approximately 23% of our students identifying as Alaska Native and 11% identifying as 2 or more races. My district actually has a long tradition of working in partnership with the Sitka Tribe of Alaska on such long-standing initiatives as the Wuching Preschool Program and the Sitka Native Education Program. As superintendent, I facilitated community-wide strategic planning. I led collaborative stakeholder teams in that development, included members of Sitka Tribe of Alaska, Tribal Council, and they were all essential in the process and in the ongoing work of the district. As a superintendent, I've worked with Sitka Tribe of Alaska and Sea Alaska Heritage Institute to provide professional development and cultural competency training for our educators. And this professional development included roundtable discussions among staff, culture bearers, and tribal elders. And although we have important work yet to do, the percentage of Alaska Native and American Indian students that scored advanced and proficient in the last English Language Arts Assessment in Sitka was 17% higher than statewide, and math was approximately 20% higher.
Thank you. Dr. Scallon.
I've spent my career working in communities with underserved student populations. And one of the things that I think is key is we need to start by being honest about what our truth is and what our data says. And so we need to start looking at our data through disaggregated data where we can see the performance of individual student group populations. Second, we need to look at the research of what the research says is best practice in supporting Alaskan Natives, and we need to talk to those communities and really understand what they need. We need to call this out as a goal in the district, right? That this needs to be a stated goal of the district to close this achievement gap. It needs to be captured in the strategic plan, and it needs to be a driving initiative here. Similarly, when I was in the Bronx, I was a principal, and we had a large English language learner population. And I was not experienced with that population going in, but I took the time to talk to those families, those students, and the teachers. And as a result of that, we started both a sheltered language program and a bilingual program that was able to improve the outcomes for those students.
Thank you. So this time we'll start with Mr. Hauser, and this is from the university community. How can the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District and the University of Alaska Fairbanks continue to partner to better serve the needs and desires of Fairbanks North Star Borough School District students?
Well, thank you for the question. Just over the last couple of days, getting a chance to visit the schools, talk to the provost for the university, it's clear to me that there's already a strong partnership that's built between the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District and the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I think one of the things that I've seen that are areas that we will continue to build upon if I were the superintendent here are the dual credit options, both for students to be able to take those dual credit opportunities as a credit by choice at the university, or also bringing those dual credit opportunities into the high school to provide that opportunity for students to take that class and earn high school credit at the same time as college credit. I think great initiatives like the North Star College, where it provides students the opportunity to get a jump start, juniors and seniors on college classes and getting those opportunities. But I also think another area that I think that partnership between UAF and the district can build is in that, if you will, teacher pipeline. We talk about benefiting students, and having good, high-quality educators in the schools is very important. And I've already worked with a number of university presidents on building that paraprofessional pipeline for paraprofessional to teachers or substitute to teachers. And I see that's another area that we need to build upon, and I'd be excited to work with UAF on that.
Thank you. Dr. Scanlon?
As Mr. Hauser said, this is a great opportunity to build on a strength that exists within the district. We need to make sure that this is a mutually beneficial partnership. We need to make sure that it is serving both the school district and the university if we want to see it be successful over the long term. I currently work with 3 different university partners in the School District of Philadelphia, and we do that because we know that it provides additional opportunities for our students for dual enrollment, for career training, for experiences that sometimes we can't offer at the high school, but we can offer at our community college or one of our local universities. I've also worked quite deeply with Temple University on teacher pipeline and making sure that we have both training experiences as well as post-graduation experiences to make sure that the students are successful. And that's included supporting our, what would be ESSA employees here, our paraprofessionals, to have a trajectory into a teaching career, because we know that research consistently says that the most important person in a classroom is the teacher and is the staff there, and so making sure that they're successfully trained in that partnership is really important.
Thank you. Mr. Minor?
First off, I'd like to thank UAF for their amazing partnership, and I'd like to thank Anupma Prakash for attending our Community Leaders Forum today. It's always good to see her and work with her. I work with Anupma and her team on a regular basis. We meet once a month to discuss the North Star College. Recently, those conversations have centered around the expansion project and the success that we've had with North Star College and offering college opportunities for many of our students here in the district. That's something I'm very proud of. We're also looking at dual credit opportunities in our high schools. We're identifying specific courses that would qualify for dual credit, and we're in the process of rewriting policy that I hope passes at some point in time that would provide weighted grades for our dual enrollment classes as opposed to just the AP classes that we currently have. As Frank talked about, the teacher prep and parent-to-teacher pipeline, that's something that we're also in conversations with UAF about, and something that's going to be vitally important for our district in the future.
Thank you. So our next question will be starting with Dr. Scallon. According to a study in the American Economic Journal, starting the school day 15 minutes later has a positive effect on student achievement. However, when our school district did an extensive study on changing high school start times, they decided to make the start times earlier. What is your opinion of this issue, and would you be open to re-examining the start times of high schools, possibly making them as late as 8:30?
So as a leader, one of the things that I've always leaned on is our data, and second is what the research says. The research is pretty consistent that our secondary students need to start later. It is how their circadian rhythms work. It is how they learn best. At the same time, this isn't an easy decision where simply starting later doesn't impact other things. And so we need to really think about what are the trade-offs, and as a community have those conversations around where we want to make the trade-offs and where we want to put our start times. As an example, some of those trade-offs will require creative solutions. When we've looked at this in my own context, one of the questions that came up was if high school students are starting later, who's home when our elementary students get home to provide childcare and support? There's some creative solutions that we can think about when it comes to after-school programming and supports that answer that. And so one is to be creative. The other thing is to go back to those trade-offs and to really make a decision about how this will impact extracurriculars, how this will impact high school students with jobs, and whether there are opportunities to maybe do some of those things before school.
Thank you. Mr. Minor?
As the assistant superintendent of secondary schools, anecdotally, I would say yes, that I do support this. When I talk to students and teachers, we have a real attendance issue in the school district right now with our secondary students, and many of them attribute our early start time to those attendance issues. On the flip side of that, as a leader, I would also echo the sentiments of Dr. Scallion, and that we need to look at the data. We need to survey our community, including our students, to see what works best for them and have them be an active participant in the decision-making process. It's interesting, this was perfect timing. One of our West Valley students here actually has a petition going with this very thing, and he shared a couple stats with me. The CDC states that teens need 10 hours of sleep to avoid sleep deprivation, and on average, every 15 minutes of sleep lost is equivalent to a letter grade. And so that's amazing research that he's already doing, and I just love that our students are contributing to the conversation.
Thank you. Mr. Hauser?
No, I'm happy to say that in the Sitka School District, we actually made that transition. Our elementary schools start first, then our middle schools, and our high schools start at 8:45. And we'll never look back. It has been amazing for our students. We've seen, our attendance rates increase in our students. They're more alert, more awake, and it has actually been a really positive experience for the Sitka School District after that change had been made. I also think it's very important to follow the data. Look at what as we say, the American Economic Journal, there's a lot of data that talks about that, and it's important to follow the research as we're going through and we're making this decision, or at least broaching the subject and talking with the community about that decision. And I say that because it's really important. This is a community decision as we go through and we look at the research and we have the conversations around it, because in my previous district, in the Anchorage School District, they spent a lot of time working on trying to do this transition. They brought a specialist in to make that happen, and ultimately they started deviating from the research, and the community wasn't involved in the process as much as potentially it could have been, and ultimately it did not happen there. And so that's something that it is very successful in the district that I'm currently in.
Thank you. Before we go to our next question, I just wanted to do a sound check. I thought I heard a mic might have fallen off. Mr. Minor, could you do a test on your mic?
Test, 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 test. Am I sounding good?
Okay, we should be good. And just to make sure, Dr. Scanlon, would you do yours?
Good evening.
Okay, and Mr. Hauser?
This is Frank Hauser.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we don't want to lose anybody tonight. All right, so our next question will be going to be starting with Mr. Minor, and this is from the central office perspective. Public education has never been more important and more under fire than ever before. We are facing extreme challenges on every front with limited financial resources with which to address the problems. Creative problem solving is therefore extremely important. In what ways have you demonstrated creative, innovative problem solving, and can you share one creative solution you might consider for our district?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great question. First off, I'd just like to thank all of our educators working in our school, because I completely agree that I don't think that there's ever been as tough a time to be in education as there is today. So those of you that are in the schools every day, thank you very much. Anybody that lived through the COVID pandemic and was in schools or in administration at that point in time had to come up with a lot of creative solutions. And so the thing I loved about our district is that we had a huge stakeholder group that worked on those creative solutions together. So we had students, we had teachers, we had community members, we had a wide cross-section of folks that were coming up to the return to school plans for our district and putting creative solutions in place. And that's something that I would do as a leader. I don't have all the answers, but I am very good at bringing teams of people together to have important conversations. Something that I would do as a creative solution for our district as opportunities fade because of budgetary issues within our high schools is increase our virtual learning opportunities. Currently writing a dissertation on virtual learning, and something that I'm very passionate about. It'll never replace instruction within the classroom, but I do want to have those opportunities for students still in high school through virtual learning.
Thank you. Mr. Hauser?
I'm worried about time on this one. I'm just going to be honest with everyone. I'll start off just by saying that, I've been going to Juneau for the last 10 years to share, our stories about public education funding and the challenges that we faced. Some of the areas creative that we've looked at from funding revolve around grants, using grants to provide some resources for staffing, partnerships. We currently have a partnership with Sitka Tribe of Alaska and the Alaska Heritage Institute that provide a Northwest Coast arts teacher for our students and for our schools, a Tlingit language teacher, as well as a science class around traditional ecological knowledge. One of the new things I'm looking at, I just started working on this last week. We have an alternative high school, and if you understand how the foundation is, why I need more time, so I'm going to speed up. The foundation formula works. Sometimes our alternative schools, those students get added to your largest high school class or your largest school size, and oftentimes that multiplier is less than a 1.0 multiplier for how the foundation works. So our alternative schools, even though it's a small schools, have high needs, doesn't give us the full funding. I'm looking at communicating and have been communicating with the state about changing our alternative high schools designation from alternative to an actual high school, which means that if we're able to make that happen, we can make a increase to our funding to $347,000, and that is just for 48 students.
Thank you. Dr. Scallon?
To solve the financial challenges that Fairbanks is facing, we're gonna need to be creative. That's just an honest piece around that. And part of that is thinking about our solutions in two sort of time frames. There's some immediate pieces that we need to address, and then there's some longer term. And so if we're able to think about solutions in those two ways, we can actually afford to get more creative, because it's not just about solving for tomorrow, but it's about solving for 5 years from now as well. I think that involves bringing the community together, because we know that the knowledge is in this room and in this community, and we need to have those conversations to solve this. Today there was a conversation with our union leaders, and one of the things that was brought up there was the idea of a shortened schedule, or a shortened school day as a way to give teachers time for collaboration. That's one potential solution. Another solution that we currently do in several of my schools is every Wednesday we partner with our local community, and they run what we call mini courses for our 9th and 10th graders. So they run courses on the afternoon on Wednesday, and then our juniors and seniors are out on internship. And so it provides that common planning time, but not just putting students back out of school, but instead having a further enrichment opportunity.
Thank you. And we'll start this round with Mr. Hauser. Coming from the support staff perspective, how would you include and work with classified staff to make them feel part of the team?
I firmly believe that every single employee in a district, from the bus driver to the teacher, from the principal to the custodian, is vital to our students. And one of the things that I did last year when I was negotiating between the teachers and our support personnel is really work on professional development, collaboration, and supports for all of our staff. In the past, we've had professional learning days, early release Fridays for students, and then there'd be collaboration time. And oftentimes the collaboration didn't happen across all of our staff. And so one of the things I worked on during negotiations was to put language into both the teachers and the classified staff around professional development, collaboration, and working together towards the goals of meeting the students' needs. So we actually have language in our contract now that actually has a committee that comes together and talks about professional development, collaboration, and that is including our support personnel and our teachers as well as our principals to work on really identifying the needs of the students and then working together on professional development and collaboration ideas to support those students across all of our staff. And that has just started this year, and we're really excited about the joint collaboration, communication, and supports that we're able to provide.
Thank you. Dr. Scallon?
Our classified staff are truly the backbone of the district. Our schools aren't clean, our buses aren't run, our students don't get their targeted support without these individuals. And so we need to start by recognizing that. We also need to be careful not to answer the question of what will make them feel part of the team without taking the time to talk to them and to really understand from their perspective what they need and how they feel supported. When we were talking to the union leaders earlier today, it was brought up that there's a high level of turnover within our classified staff. And so we really need to take the time as district leaders, as school leaders, as a community, to talk to our staff and understand the challenges that they're facing and what are the supports that they need. This could be about additional training. This could be about recognition. One way we did this in my current situation is we had a number of classified staff that because of the number of hours that they worked, they didn't qualify for benefits. And what we learned in working with them was that actually increasing their number of hours from 4 hours a day to 6 hours a day, we were able to get them benefits, and that made a huge difference in their quality of life.
Thank you. Mr. Meinert?
Showing us as staff members that we value them is valuing them in our budget and showing them that their jobs matter. I can't tell you the countless stories from principals and teachers that when their day custodian is out, that has an impact on student achievement. When our roads or our bus lanes aren't cleared with snow, that has an impact on student achievement. So as Mr. Scallion said, they are the lifeblood of our schools, and they need to be supported in those endeavors. I think something else to make them feel a part of the team is really looking at our negotiations. I haven't been privy to the details of negotiations, but I would like to crack into that and see if there's some things that aren't only the dollar amounts for negotiations, but are there languages that we can work through in negotiations to show that they're part of the team? And then promotion opportunities. A lot of times what I'm hearing is folks feel like this is a job rather than a career. So what are the promotional opportunities for our SF folks so that they make it a career and stay with us in the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District?
Thank you. And we will start next with Dr. Scalon. How would you communicate fiscal needs for operations and capital improvements with the borough, which is our taxing jurisdiction? And this is from the Fairbanks North Star Borough perspective.
I think part of this role is about making sure that we're clearly advocating for the needs of our students and our staff. Part of that is at the state level, but as this question asked, this is really about working in concert with the borough as they're a real partner in this work. there's also a recognition that it's a fixed pie. There's only so much funding to go around, and so we need to be really strategic and thoughtful about what our asks are and what are our investments. I think that starts by working with all of our community to make sure that we develop a strategic plan. That strategic plan calls out the goals of the district. It also calls out what investments we're making, so that when we're going to the borough and we're saying, here's the funding we need to run the schools that all students deserve, we're being really clear about what that investment is, that they're purchasing, that they're investing in, that they're making a commitment to. On top of that, once we do that strategic plan, we need to be really transparent about how we spend the funding and what the impact is, right? That's about good stewardship. We're asking our partners to make an investment in us, and so we need to show that we're able to make it pay off.
Thank you. Mr. Minor?
I would start the communications with building relationships with Borough Mayor Bryce Ward and Assembly members. I'm happy to say that I feel like we have a very good relationship with the borough, and to have those honest and open conversations, you have to have an established good relationship. And so that's something that I would focus on first as the superintendent, is to ensure that we have open lines of communication between the school district and the borough. I also think it's very important on behalf of the superintendent to tell our story. Tell the borough assembly and tell the mayor exactly what we need. We shouldn't shy away from telling our story and what additional revenue could do for our students, because if you don't ask, you're not going to get the money. And so I think that's an important part of going forward and working with the borough. I would also plan on being in a regular attendance at assembly meetings and having our executive directors there from time to time to also help share the stories and the accomplishments of what's happening in our district.
Mr. Hauser?
Well, currently as a sitting superintendent, I work with the city and borough of Sitka Assembly on school funding. I personally believe in open, transparent communication, and that really applies especially to the budget asks to the city. I just held a joint work session with the Assembly, Mayor, and School Board where I presented an in-depth PowerPoint to go over every detail of the district's budget request and the state foundation formula. I really want the Assembly members to understand exactly where the money goes in our district and how that money is spent. One of the things that many of you, are aware of is, well, you're not aware of necessarily this, but how in my district, 82% of our budget goes towards staff, but in many districts, the majority of the budget goes to staff. We're in the people business. So I'm really proud that the Assembly members and the mayor have spoken publicly and praised the transparency of the district's budget process under my leadership. And I'm also proud of the fact that we have, over the last 2 years, I've been superintendent, received full funding to the cap, in addition to additional funding and appropriations for additional areas like student activities, travel, and other key areas around the district.
Thank you. Okay, for this next question, which comes from the Chamber of Commerce perspective, we will start with Mr. Meinert. What are the most important skills that the district must teach students to prepare them for work?
Yeah, this is a great question, and one that we've been focusing on. I see a smile in the back room with my Hutch staff, and with workplace readiness skills. So folks are often hired for hard skills but fired for soft skills. And so this is something that Hutch takes very seriously, and that I'd like to expand throughout the school district and our secondary schools, is focusing on workplace readiness skills. So what are the soft integral skills that students need to be successful when they enter the workplace? And this is something that we can work on and teach our students in our schools. And so we're right in the middle of a redesign process for Hutch to implement a new version of the workplace readiness skills. I'm very proud of the work that Principal Taylor and her leadership team is putting into that. I'll also just say that the most important skills that the district must teach the students are skills and are skills that students are passionate about. We need to connect students with their passion, and that's our job. And so when students leave our institutions, they've got all kinds of opportunities because of the skills that they've made within our high schools.
Thank you. Mr. Hauser?
When I think about the skills to prepare students for workplace readiness, I really look at the 21st century skills for student success. Really, those skills are foundational and fundamental in what really the district should be teaching. They include skills like critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, information literacy, media literacy, flexibility, leadership. Like Dr. or mine,
Almost doctor.
Almost doctor. I was going to say soon to be doctor, Meinert. Like he was saying, these skills are really important in what they would consider soft skills. And, I've talked to career technical education. I've talked to the workforce. They've told me, as a superintendent, we'll train them in the skills that they need, but we just need them to understand, some of these foundational skills to be able to learn, to be on time, those soft skills, if you will. And so those are things that I think through our instruction, through our curriculum, through the work that we do with our career technical education, we need to embed those 21st century skills into our instruction to make sure that they're ready to make that transition into the workforce or into college or into the career. I also think it's important, personally, I do believe there's a need for a cultural literacy as well.
Thank you. Dr. Scallon?
I think we all want to be in a place where our graduates have choice, where our graduates have been prepared academically so that if they want to go on to a post-secondary institution, that they can. If they want to make a choice to join the military, they can. And if they want to go into a profession and earn a living wage job, they have the skills and are ready to do that. I think there's different names for it that what we can call, but it comes down to making sure that students have the academic skills to navigate and to be ready and to be successful in work. It comes down to mindset. It comes down to workplace habits. It comes down to 21st century skills and habits of success. I think what's key is that we be really thoughtful about how we give students those experiences to develop those skills. In the schools I currently work with, we do that in a number of different ways. We do that in their academic classes, but we also do it in internships. We do it in pre-apprenticeships. We do it in partnership with our industry and our unions to give students the opportunities to have those experiences before they even need to go off and interview for a job.
Thank you. And we'll start this question from the principal's perspective, and Mr. Hauser will be the first to answer. Describe your top 3 goals over the next few years in your role as superintendent.
So I actually can't limit it to just 3 goals, so I'll apologize early. I actually have 5 of them, and it really is identify and build upon the successes that engage all students, making sure that we have appropriately challenging work and high expectations. Really looking at a data-driven approach to identify areas of support and to increase student access to programs and opportunities. I think we need to provide meaningful professional development to advance the district goals to all of our staff. I think we need to increase our organizational efficiencies and effectiveness and focus on maintaining accountability and looking at the recruitment and retention of high-quality educators and staff and really building that leadership capacity. Oh, sorry, I saw the stop pop up, sorry. No, that's okay. And then lastly, really engaging and energizing students and families, staff and community in the district's mission and just continue to build that pride in the school district.
Thank you. Dr. Scallon?
I'm coming to this role knowing that I'm going to need to take the time to continue to learn about Fairbanks and the community and exactly what's needed. And so for me, I'm not sure yet on exactly what the process pieces are. But I am clear about what some of the outcomes are that we should be driving on that have come out in the conversations. And I want to be really clear that we need to make these hard, number-driven outcomes, right? And so the first one is not just that we have a balanced budget, but that we have a budget that's aligned to our strategic plan. The second is that we see improved student outcomes for all student subgroups. And the third is that we make sure that we're a school district of choice for students and for staff. And so making sure that we have figured out how to support and develop staff in a way that we're able to attract and solve some of the pipeline challenges.
Thank you. Mr. Meinert?
The first goal I'd focus on is budget stabilization. I think you do that in a number of ways. I think you look at opportunities for increases in revenue. Throughout my career, I've done that through leading homeschool and correspondence programs that can bring revenue into the school district. Through our North Star College expansion, there's also an increase in revenue. And so what are other ways that we can increase revenue to help stabilize our budget? There's also an advocacy piece with that. We need consistent funding, and funding that's going to be predictable, that we can build budgets and programs off of. I think we also need to connect actionable outcomes to our strategic plan. One of the things I did and helped the district last year was work through an accreditation process. And one of those outcomes of that process was saying that we need real actionable outcomes attached to our strategic plan. Our strategic plan is beautiful. It's very high level. But what are some things that we can dig into that are very actionable? Lastly, improved academic achievement. I know one of the things that the next superintendent will be working on is the implementation of the Alaska Reads Act. And so working with our K-3 students and teachers to implement that effectively and bring up the proficiency reading skills of our students.
Thank you. In our next round, we'll start with Dr. Scallon. And from a teacher perspective, what is your experience with labor management partnerships? How have or would you develop and promote this relationship?
So I believe that the best decisions for students are made by those closest to the students, whether that's our families, our teachers, our principals. And so for me, I have extensive experience working in heavily labor and heavily union-based. Philadelphia is a very union-based town, and I'm proud of the fact that I have very close partnerships with our principals union and with our teachers union. You know, in talking about this question, I think sometimes people talk about trust. I think sometimes people talk about communication. I think those are two of the pieces, but when this works really well, it is about the partnership and about collaboration. This is about mutual ownership of student outcomes and making sure that we're all working together. In my current role, I work really closely with our principal steward for our union to develop professional development for our principals and then for our teachers. I don't think I shared this before, but in Philadelphia, I work with 40 different schools. There are a wide range of schools. We bring the principals and the assistant principals for those schools together monthly for professional development, and a one-size-fits-all simply doesn't work. But having those conversations beforehand with the principals, with the union leads to make sure that we're developing effective professional development has ensured that it's been effective.
Thank you. Mr. Meinert?
I have extensive experience in labor management partnerships. In past school districts, I've been the spokesperson for negotiations that have ended very quickly, with both sides being happy with the outcome. Something else that I'm very proud of here in our work with FEA, we're actually sitting in a school that the school district partners with FEA on a restorative practices initiative where they partially fund a teacher that works on restorative practices in the school, and so does the district. And that's something that I'm passionate about in terms of looking at non-punitive ways for our students when they make negative choices. And so that's a great illustration of the partnership that we have with FEA. Had a great conversation with our ESSA president today to talk about mentorship programs. That's something that's been on my mind. We have a mentorship program for our FEA and our teachers, but what's a mentorship program that we could put in place for our ESSA employees to ensure that they're supported and that we retain the very best employees within our district?
Thank you. Mr. Hauser?
So my experience with labor management actually includes serving on both sides. I'm a former vice president of the Principal Association and was lead negotiator for the Principal Association's contract negotiation with the Anchorage School District. Now as a current superintendent, I was a lead negotiator for for the district side, of course, on 2 settled contracts with the Teachers Union and our Support Professionals Union. My focus is really on, a collaborative approach to, working with and trying to negotiate contracts. I really have practiced interest-based bargaining before and trying to identify what the needs are. I also really try to promote a positive relationship by meeting regularly with union representatives and leadership I'm also a superintendent who believes in and follows the settled negotiated agreements, because I think that is that collective agreement that we all sit down, we've worked through, and we agree upon. And I think when you follow that collective bargaining agreement, you making sure that you have an understanding what that looks like, that then helps everybody feel confident and comfortable that we're following and working within what is our shared understanding of how we're going to run business.
Thank you. So we're going to start the next one with Mr. Meinert, and this comes from the military community perspective. Student-to-teacher ratio directly affects the quality of education. The school district has overcrowded classrooms. What do you believe is the ideal ratio to achieve maximum educational outcomes, and what is your plan to achieve this ratio?
I believe this is a bit of a trick question because I'm not sure there's a magic number that we can put on PTR. But I do know that every student deserves a good teacher, not by mistake, but by design, and that we have amazing teachers in this school district. One of the most important factors of student learning is collective teacher efficacy, and that's the belief that one can make a difference in students' lives. And so the more that we can support teachers in our classrooms, even with growing numbers, to make them believe that they can affect and positively affect the lives of our children is incredibly important. With that said, there is a very real constraint in terms of the size of our classrooms, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so recently, I asked one of our principals to take a picture of what it looks like with 30 students in the classroom, 32 students in the classroom, 34 students in the classroom. It's significant. My wife teaches in a 3rd grade classroom that has 30 plus students. It's very difficult, a very difficult job. So we need to put the supports in place that we can for our teachers, work on advocacy at the state level to provide appropriate funding for our school district.
Thank you. Mr. Hauser?
So in the Sitka School District, keeping pupil-teacher ratios low has been a priority of the district. At our elementary levels for primary and intermediate, we have focused on trying to keep our numbers around 1 to 16 and 1 to 19. And this is something we've been really working on and have prioritized in our district. We see our testing data and the low PTRs for our classrooms actually having a difference. But we also know the realities with funding that, in the Sitka School District, we're currently facing a 12% deficit, and this is something that we might be looking at as, possibly having to address increasing the ratio for the pupil-teacher ratio. I believe that increase in class size, though, is really a statewide problem, and it's something that requires a statewide solution. And that really is looking at that funding piece that comes into place. These are difficult conversations, difficult decisions, and we can continue to look for, like we have in the Sitka School District, ways to solve this. But a lot of it is about, telling our story down in Juneau. Just about a week and a half ago, I was down there in Juneau and testified before Senate Education Committee with a couple of students and to tell our stories about the impact of education funding, and we'll be going back next week to have those conversations.
Thank you. Dr. Scanlon?
I don't believe that there's a perfect ratio. The research consistently shows that there's diminishing returns sort of on both ends, right? That if you get to too large a class size, it really puts a strain on the teachers. And if you get to too small a class size, you sort of aren't getting as much bang for the buck. I think that at the same time, we need to make sure that as we're having conversations around PTR, we're having conversations with staff about what's the support that's needed to be successful in that. And when we've done that conversation in previous settings I've been in, we've come up with some pretty creative trade-offs where we may increase a class size slightly and the teacher gets a teaching assistant. And that's a way that we can balance out the workload that comes with it. There's other pieces that go along with class size that also impact a teacher's level of responsibility and work. And so we can think about both class size, but we can also think about things like preps, the number of classes that teachers are preparing for, and how do we balance overall workload. And I think part of that is about us thinking creatively about what have we asked educators to do in the past, and what may we need to change.
Thank you. So for this last question, it'll be a time of 2 minutes. Okay. And We'll be starting with Mr. Hauser. So for closing statements, if you would share any concluding thoughts you would like to share with the community. And we'll start with Mr. Hauser.
Well, I'd just like to thank the West Valley High School for hosting us tonight. I actually had a chance to spend time here when I was earning my teaching endorsement at UAF, and it's actually great to be back and to see the school. I'd also like to thank the board and everyone who came out tonight or is watching online. My wife and I lived in Fairbanks right after we were married, and we have fond memories of Fairbanks, and we've really actually had a great time reconnecting. I've been advocating for Alaska students, schools, and educators for 25 years. I actually represent Alaska on the governing board of the American Association of School Administrators, and I've been attending legislative fly-ins in Juneau for the past 10 years. I'm proud of the relationships that I've built on both sides of the aisle in Juneau. As I've said before, I've been in Juneau the last couple of weeks, and I'm heading back next week for the legislative fly-ins. And I always like to share the good things that are happening around, Alaska and Alaska schools. And I'm actually looking forward to sharing with the legislators some of the great things that I've actually seen this week in Fairbanks. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for that opportunity, and I'm looking forward to talking with you more.
Thank you. Dr. Scanlon?
Yeah, when I was in school, I loved it. I loved high school. And one of the things that I've heard from students going around and visiting the schools is how much they love it. And as an aspiring superintendent here, my hope is to build a community where every student feels like they have a school where they are appreciated and where they're able to be successful. As I shared at the beginning, I've worked in a large number of contexts. Right now I support 40 schools that are the full range of schools and some of our most innovative schools. And I'm proud of the fact that as a leader, I've taken the time to recognize that you need to listen and learn before you lead. That is a key piece. And so coming into this community, really taking the time to listen and learn is the key part, is the part of actually my 100-day transition plan. In each of those communities, when I've gone in, we've taken that time, but we've also been able to spend time dreaming big and thinking about what's possible. And we've all faced constraints. Budget challenges are a real situation across the country. And despite those budget challenges, we've been able to dream big and get different experiences and great experiences for students. Throughout my time over the last 2 days, I've had the opportunity to learn about Fairbanks and why individuals love to be here. It is true, you know what they say, like it is a community of wonderful people that care deeply about their neighbor, about their students, about their own children, about their neighbors' school and their kids, and it's just wonderful to see. And so my hope is that I will have the opportunity to join Fairbanks, to educate my 3 kids in this district, to have my wife, who's an educator, join and be able to be part of this community as well. So thank you for welcoming me over these 2 days.
Thank you. Mr. Minor?
Well, I'd like to thank West Valley staff, the school board, all educators in our schools, our principals that have welcomed us throughout the last couple days. I'd like to thank our business partners, our law enforcement partners, and everybody else that played a part in the community forum earlier today. And then a special shout out to the students. I mean, every time I'm in school, I'm just completely blown away by the work that they do and their love for their school. It's absolutely amazing. I'll close with similar remarks that I closed with yesterday. Fairbanks is my home. This is not a place I'm moving to for a job or the next notch on my belt so I can go to something bigger and better in a couple years. I'm committed to Fairbanks. I own a home in Fairbanks. Fairbanks is where I want to raise my kids. And Fairbanks is where I want to be working with and alongside our amazing educators, families, and community members for years to come. I want to thank our amazing educators in our schools that show up every day and make the difference in the lives of over 12,000 students. I know you're experiencing incredibly challenging times, and I'd like to work with you to solve some of those challenges so you can get back to focusing on our precious commodities, our students. To the educators in our schools, you are seen, you are heard, and I look forward to working alongside of you for many years to come. I want to end with a quote that is often said here at West Valley, that the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. Each and every educator, family member, and community member is a vital part of the success of our district. And if we work together, our best days are truly ahead.
Thank you. So let's give our candidates a round of applause. Well earned. That does bring us to the end of our public forum tonight. A couple of reminders, as President Sanderson was mentioning at the beginning, there are QR codes on the doors. You can also go to the district website, look under the superintendent search for feedback. The feedback links are open until 12:30 tomorrow afternoon. So I want to tell you, especially if you do close reading, you may read in the wording and that says this closes at 7:30 or such. Ignore that. Okay. They are open. Those were written and have been corrected. They were written by the Ray and Associates. So, but they've been corrected. Those links are open until 12:30 tomorrow. Okay, and we really appreciate the feedback. As a reminder, we will be doing in a special meeting tomorrow, final interviews in the morning with each of the candidates. Then we will take a lunch break, and then come back for deliberations in the afternoon. The morning session is completely open. The afternoon, when we come back, we will go into executive session. We will then come out, and the plan is to be able to announce a selection for superintendent. We are very, very pleased to have 3 quality candidates here, and I invite you, as soon as I stop speaking, to feel free to come up to mix and mingle. If you haven't had a chance to shake the hands of our candidates, please do so. They'll be spread out on the floor here, but come on down, say hi to them, and please do give us your feedback. So with that, we're done for tonight. Thank you very much.